Looking forward to the first game, West Virginia, Penn State. Getting to play a Big Ten guy. I know a lot of Big Ten fans in here, obviously, at Michigan Channel. What's your thinking on that game, Mark? Where do you think? You think West Virginia can keep it close, or you think Penn State's going to blow them out again?
I think Michigan. I got Michigan on the brain. I think Penn State is a decidedly better team, but a couple things here, because I've heard a couple people just completely dismiss this game. Penn State's toughest games are bam, bam, bam. Not even mention West Virginia. I've seen this a few times. They're going into a hornet's nest, and you know that a lot better than I do. So they're playing at West Virginia, and we've seen some preseason, we see all these rankings that come out, the toughest places to play, and that's probably where West Virginia gets shortchanged again, is that is a tough place to play. Coming off 9-4, playing a rival, playing an old-time rival, if you're not aware, folks, from back in the day when both were independents and they would play every year. And Penn State, they're going to be ranked 7th or 8th in the country, something in that range. They're going to be up for that game. And having lost last year in a game that I think was more competitive than the final score would indicate, it was well within range for early into the fourth quarter. Somewhere in that range, it got away from West Virginia, late third quarter, something like that. Penn State scored a final touchdown with 30 seconds left. It didn't matter. That made it worse.
6 seconds to go. 6 seconds to go.
So I thought 38-15. So it was really 31-15. So I'm thinking that factor in terms of, and I'm not a big revenge guy in terms of that being a factor, but I do think that this might be a slightly different situation in terms of a revenge factor, since I think there's an incentive for a team that feels like they're being dismissed, they're being overlooked. And I'm not saying Penn State's overlooking them, but fans, media are overlooking this game as, oh, it's a nice little opening weekend, but Penn State's going to win by a few touchdowns and move on. And especially when that team has been on the field with the other team the year before, and they can gauge, we're pretty close. We can compete with them. They were better, but we were on the road. And then we build up all this confidence from winning 9 games after that. They went 9-3 after that. And then on top of that, Joey, as you well know, Penn State is replacing all 3 coordinators. And this is their first game.
This is their first game. And that's one of the things, like you mentioned, West Virginia played in that game, and it was close up until the fourth quarter. It was. I mean, they scored like about with 5 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, and they scored again with 6 seconds to go in the fourth quarter. So, you take the last 5 minutes of the game out, we had a really close 7-point game, the whole game. And so this year, Penn State's lost a few players. They do return the quarterback, Drew Aller. They do return their head coach, but like you say, they lost some coordinators. They are changing coordinators. West Virginia is returning everybody. All their coaches are returning. All the coaches come back. They lost absolutely nobody in coaching. They lost absolutely nobody in transfer portal as far as any players that really mattered. And we lost Zach Frazier, our center, to the NFL. Other than that, we've got 91% of our production coming back on offense. 72% of our defense is coming back. We picked up some great transfers out of the portal from Northwestern, as you know, that I think are going to do really well for us at the corner position. So I think West Virginia can hold really well with Penn State this year. I don't see us winning the game, honestly. I don't. But I think it's going to be really close. I think it's going to be a 7-point game, and I really believe West Virginia could pull this out without a doubt. Penn State's a very good team, but I look at the starters and I think, okay, if I look at starters, Penn State might have a slight edge there, but it's not a huge edge because we have so much talent returning and everybody's got experience. I feel like we're going to be great there. The players off the bench, first players off the bench, I don't think we lose a lot there either. It's the depth later in the game when you get somebody hurt and then you got to give that second stringer a little break and you got to bring a third teamer in. That's where we drop off. And that's where the game could cost us, I'm afraid. I think we'll be fine as far as starters and even some guys off the bench. But when you get down to maybe some injuries. We have a key injury or something. It could hurt us. I don't worry about our depth at quarterback. We could lose quarterback and be okay. Our second string, Nico Marchio, fourth string, highly recruited quarterback, and he's very good. You know, we've seen that last year. He won 2 games for us last year. He beat Pitt and beat TCU after Garrett Green got hurt and went down. So I'm happy with our second string. I'm not worried about our running backs. Our running back room is loaded. I mean, absolutely loaded. C.J. Donaldson, Jaheim White, two of the best running backs in the country, coming back. I worry about our wide receivers. We do have Hudson Clement and Preston Fox and Rodney Gallagher. Now, Hudson Clement and Preston Fox are both walk-ons, but they are amazing. I mean, they just don't drop balls. If you throw a ball their way, they're coming down with it. They both earn scholarships, and they're just walk-on talent, but they're really good. Now, Rodney Gallagher, of course, was a 4-star, and I'm hoping this can be the year that we see some stuff out of Rodney Gallagher because we've not seen that in the past couple of years. So I'm hoping that this is the year for him. Now, I'm hoping that we can get some pressure on Drew Aller as well. I worry about that. I know that they're going to have a really good offensive line. I know we've got a really good offensive line, so I'm not so worried about the pressure on Garrett Green. Penn State didn't get a lot of success at that last year. Garrett Green's pretty quick and shifty and get out of trouble. And plus, if you look at things like Wyatt Milam, our left tackle, he didn't give up a single sack last year, and only 3 hurries the whole year. And and he's coming back, and I know they're really strong off of that edge, and so I'm not so worried about that. Where other teams would probably be very worried about Penn State coming off that edge. So I think it's going to be an exciting game. I think it's going to be a good game. I think West Virginia has a really good chance. I'm picking West Virginia to cover. I'm not picking them to win, but I am picking West Virginia to cover the spread. And the easiest money you'll make all year is Vegas has West Virginia 6.5. That's the easiest money you can make all year because they could win 6.5 games in their sleep.
Oh, 6.5. Oh, I thought you meant the spread on the game was 6.5.
Oh, no. I meant 6.5 win total for the year. That's the easiest money you can make.
Iowa at 7.5 is another easy one. So I'll make this point, Joey. As you well know, yes, I will give the nod to Michigan as having the best defense in the country last year because what they proved in the playoffs and the Big Ten championship game, although you and I could shut out Iowa. However, I think from a personnel standpoint that Penn State might have had the best defense in the country. They were loaded with talent. They had great players on every level, high draft choices on every level of the defense. They lost some of those guys, but they bring back a number of those guys, and they've recruited so well on that side of the ball. They are going to most likely be just in that same level of defensive play this year. They are going to be really good on that side of the ball.
Yep.
And I'll say this about a prediction, Joey. So Joey's really good about spotting upsets every week, I should say. Every week, Joey will pinpoint some upsets. So follow Joey on the upset picks. I will say this, Joey, because I know people are going to jump all over me if I pull the trigger, because I'd like to explain something. I take some pride in my prediction record. And folks, if you follow me in my predictions, actually at $100 per pick on picks against the spread and straight up last year, you would have made over $9,000. But, and that was just an average year for me, pretty standard stuff. So I'm not an odds maker. I'm not a handicapper. I don't put myself in the class of those guys because I spend about 20 minutes making predictions. I don't, that's not my livelihood. But I can predict football games pretty well. And I will say this, that I could try to protect my record and just pick chalk every game. And you're going to protect your record pretty well if you play it conservative. But I like to try to look for upsets. And I know I may pick West Virginia to win this game because I think it's a prime spot for an upset. And I know as soon as I do, if I do, that there are going to be people going crazy telling me I'm insane because I think West Virginia is better than Penn State. That doesn't mean that I believe that West Virginia is better than Penn State. if you take out all of the low-level group of 5 games and the FCS opponents, when West Virginia plays Duquesne, obviously they're going to win that game. We don't even need to think about it. But if you just look at competitive power conference football, the favorite wins 75% of the time, 80% of the time, something in that range, may not even be that high. That means if you're going to make logical, reasonable judgments and not try to protect your record and pick chalk across the board, you need to look for upsets, and there are going to be upsets. Another fun little fact I like to throw out there, Joey, is that this is almost like clockwork every week in the top 25. So since some teams have bye weeks and some teams play each other within the top 25, there's usually about 20 games within the top 25, 20 to 22 games. There are 4 to 5 upsets every week, like clockwork. So, folks, you got to find about 20 to 25% of the games, they will be upsets.
Yeah, and some great teams to watch out for. But it's like Appalachian State and Liberty and James Madison. If they're playing a Power 5, look at the Power 5 team they're playing. There's probably a pretty good chance they could upset them. Those teams are really, really good at upsetting. Look, I mean, Appalachian State, we know how good they are. Don't we, Michigan? Don't we, Arkansas? Don't we, Texas A&M? I mean, we know how good App State can be at upsetting people. But guess what? Liberty and James Madison are coming along and doing that too. So it's good teams to watch. I always look at their schedules because if they're going to play a Power 5 team, I'm likely going to bet on them a little bit. Maybe not a lot, but I'm going to put a little bit of money on them to possibly upset that Power 5 team. Unless it's somebody like Alabama or Georgia or Ohio State, obviously. I'm probably not. But, if they're playing, you take an App State, you put them against Florida this year, I'd probably pick an App State, honestly. Florida's down. Any other time I probably wouldn't. But